Hey everyone, welcome to Wolfman's Gaming Den. Today we have our first video for our new series, Second Lease of Games. We'll be looking at the game PI by Martin Wallace. The reason why I feel that this is a good candidate to kick off this series with is it really takes a lot of the boxes that I'm looking for when it comes to highlighting games for this series. It's a game that I've played and I enjoy. I've played multiple times both online and with a physical copy. And I'm a little surprised at how little recognition the game generally has overall within the board gaming community. Now, there might have been a little bit more when it first came out because it's a while back, but obviously at this point it's definitely a little bit quieter on that front. So hopefully I'll be able to present the game to you that maybe gets you a little bit more excited about it. And for any publishers or designers out there, hopefully this inspires you to create something similar, or even perhaps bring a second lease for this game itself by republishing it at some point. So let's go to the table. We'll do a quick overview of how the game works so that you can get a sense on what the gameplay is like, and then we'll sort of like come back to the table and I'll share my thoughts in more detail on the game itself, things I like, things I don't like, and overall how I feel about it. So let's go to the table and let's see how it works. All right, everyone. So I will go through a brief overview of the game itself. I will not go into the full details of the rules. I have a separate rules video for this. Should you want to go and have a look at that one. But I'll give you a quick sense of how the game works so that you can see if this is something that's of interest to you or not. The game is going to be played, in this game you're basically solving cases consisting of a suspect, location, and then a crime. The solution to your crime will be held by your opponent or your player to your left if you're playing with 3 or more players. You will have investigator tokens, cubes, and markers to determine how the solution of the game goes. On your turn, you will have one of 3 actions to basically go through. You can pick one of the cards from the face-up display where you will have 9 cards, and then your opponent who has the solution to your game will tell you whether this corresponds to how this is related to or could be related to your solution itself. So in this particular case, if I pick up Rick's Cafe, my opponent is going to check whether Rick's Cafe is the correct location for my crime or not, or if it is adjacent to the location where my crime is. If this is the exact location, they will put down a cylinder on it. If it is adjacent, if my actual crime is adjacent to any one of these, so in this case I have Union Square, but let's say I had downtown, they would instead put down a cube on that location. So it tells me it's not exactly Rick's Cafe, but it's one of the surrounding areas in there. And the same action applies regardless of whether you're picking up a location card or a suspect card or a crime card. The second action you can do is you can play down an investigator token, and once you've done that, the player who has the solution will look at if the actual solution you have corresponds to any one of these spots or any one of the adjacent spots to it. For each spot that is directly in that location, they will put down a cylinder on the investigator itself, not the exact clue. And then for each one that's adjacent to it, they will put down a cube on the investigator. So this way, you know that if this were the case, then I know that one of the clues is exactly in this location, but I do not know which one of the 3 that is. And I know that one of the clues is in the surrounding locations, but I do not know which one that is. So this way you will be playing cards as well as putting down investigator tokens and try to narrow down your options for what the actual solution of the crime looks like. The third action you can do on your turn is you can actually solve the crime. So what you would basically do is you'll say, I'm going to solve the crime, and then say which ones you think your suspect, location, and crime type is. If you get all 3 of them right, you move your points token on the board and get the corresponding points based on whether you're the first, second, third, or last player to get the solution. And then if you're incorrect, even if that is for one of the clues or all of the clues, you will move your penalty marker 1 space to the right, thereby losing 2 points every time you make an incorrect guess on the points itself. So this way the game will continue until everybody's had an equal number of opportunity to solve the crime itself. It is possible that others may solve the crime and you may still not be able to if within the same number of rounds, and that does happen every now and then. You will do so for 3 different cases. And then at the very end of it, you will add up the points that you have for solving the cases themselves, deduct the points for the penalties you might have accumulated, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. All right, everyone. So that was a quick overview of how the game works. As I mentioned, I have a detailed rules explanation video. So should you want to have a better understanding of how the game works in detail, I'll have a link to this down below, so have a look at that, and that should help you out. Obviously, by virtue of the fact that I'm including this game in the series, it should tell you that I do like the game, and I do. It is a fun game that more often than not I think moves at a fairly decent pace, considering that there can be a bit of deduction going on in there. So let's maybe take a step back and talk about first of all, why I think the game works the way it does, thematic connections, mechanics, and so on, and then we'll go into my final thoughts on why this is in the series itself, and hopefully by the time we get to that it will make a little bit more sense. So the game obviously has a theme that's sort of like put upon it in terms of you're a detective and you're looking to go out there and solve crimes. While I like that theme, and I do, I think it definitely works quite well for a game of this type where there's a heavy element, or not even a heavy element, the game itself is deduction through and through. It could have been something, the theme could have been something else as well, and probably worked just as well. I remember playing a game of Pie Town where essentially you were trying to solve or trying to get the solution to the secret recipe of the other players. Something like that could just as well work perfectly fine here, right? You're trying to figure out your opponent chef's secret recipe, and they have these 3 different items on the recipes, and you're trying to just figure out, guess which one it is by virtue of putting down tokens and getting the solution to work out itself. So even though I like the theme and the implementation of it, I do want to point out that the game is a little bit more abstract in its nature, as opposed to being a full-on thematic, I'm solving a story-driven crime narrative solving experience. It is not that. It is very much an abstract, take a card, resolve for the location, and then see how it works type of thing. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Secondly, it is not a heavy game at all. The mechanics, once you wrap your head around it, it's pretty straightforward. You're doing one of 3 actions. You're either checking for one of the clue cards and seeing how right or wrong you are to the clue itself, or you're putting down investigate a token, but you don't know which clue you're getting your results against, but you can check off multiple items in that way as well, and it's a little bit more powerful as an action, which is why you get a limited number of these over the course of the game. Luck can be an aspect of this game. You might have a solution that's on a specific location or a specific place where maybe the cards just don't show up, or the cards could be there, but again, you don't know. So you're probably picking something that's further off, and you're constantly getting clues that you're either drawing blank or you're getting clues that may not be quite as useful. Now, that luck factor gets mitigated over time. I found that as I played my first couple of games, I felt like, that's wonderful, I'm getting lucky, and I'm getting these cylinders out fairly quickly, or it's I'm not getting anything out there, I don't know how this works, my opponent's just getting their clue cards right multiple times. So it felt like luck was a huge part of it. Now luck is a part of it, but some of it can also be mitigated over time as you get a little bit more experienced on it, so small tactical strategies to narrow down the type of clues that you can get. So keep that in mind. There's luck to it. Some of it can be mitigated, but you will have a certain element of it left over no matter how good you get at the game at the end of the day. So that's there. Production quality is appropriate for when the game was published. The version that I have was published 7 or 8 years back. So you're not going to get a snazzy presentation that you might expect from a game coming out in 2020. But it is good for what it does. It's functional, it works well. So that's there. So what do I like about the game? The deduction part for me works really well. It's basically like a slightly more thematic version of playing Minesweeper. If any one of you remembers that game from Windows earlier on, you'd just be clicking buttons and trying to see if you are if you're unfortunate to click on the wrong spot, or if you get a right set of clues based on where you have clicked. This is basically that on steroids. It works quite well. It scratches that, I can put this down and I can teach this game fairly easily to others. It doesn't take a lot of, you don't need to be a heavy gamer to get involved in something like this. I could bring a non-gamer into it, and they would be able to pick up the mechanics fairly easily and start playing. So, that's one of the great things about this thing. On the con side, of course, if somebody's looking for a heavier deduction experience, like Alchemists, for example, this is not going to be it. Alchemist, of course, also has a bit of a luck aspect to it. But there's a lot more going on in there. There's a lot more strategy involved. There are a lot more moving pieces, which this one does not have at all. So keep that in mind. So a good way of looking at this might be, if you like Alchemists, but you want to have something that's a little bit lighter, that you can get to the table a bit more often, that you can play in a shorter period of time, this is probably the right fit for you. If you're looking for something along the lines of Alchemist with that level of depth and strategy, this is on the lighter end, so it will not be a good fit for you at that point. So how well you like that game and those kind of games would give you a very good sense on how you might feel about this. Now, I love Alchemists, and I definitely don't mind a shorter version of it over 30-40 minutes. So this scratches that itch perfectly for me. I'm a little surprised that this game never became quite as popular as anything else. Not to say that I think this should have been a big hit, but it just seems to have died down, at least from what I can see. The game is designed by the one and only Martin Wallace, so it's a little surprising that the game does not have more recognition or more playthroughs generally. So that's there. But then again, not all Martin Wallace games are that well renowned. So it is what it is at the end of the day. But I think the game is something that's worth looking at. It seems to have been a little bit lost, but I think if you can pick up a copy of this either as a used copy or if this ever comes back in print, I think it's definitely a game that's worth having a second look at and trying out. Or even if somebody's looking or might be open to bringing out a game of this ilk, there's a lot to it to like. So keep that in mind. So yeah, it's a game that I definitely feel is worth looking at, should not be forgotten, so to speak. So with that, that's actually the first game in our series, PI by Martin Wallace. Hopefully this gave you a good sense on how the game works and enough details for you to figure out whether you like the game or not yourself. So with that, that's it for me, and I'll see you at the next one. Take care.